So hi, my name's AJ. This is my brother Lucius. We have lots of conversations that we're going to share one on the podcast.
I love black people, and I want to be successful along with the majority of people, but especially black people, because we as a people have been disadvantaged disproportionately compared to other people of different races. Everybody who lives a different life has different experiences and different perspectives and motivations and expectations for their life based on the previous life that they've lived. And because we are what we know, we are what we see, monkey see, monkey do, just people in general, we a lot of times don't break expectations until we get into those groups that we're not necessarily used to, even if those groups are not necessarily helpful for us. The average person is overweight and obese, and for black people, it's even a worse statistic. Me, I was one of those people for a majority of my life. I was 200 something pounds in middle school, and I didn't know how negatively it affected me until I saw the other side of being overweight and obese. And it made me care a lot more about myself and who I was as a person and who I was turning to be, who I was growing into. I had a lot of internal negative thoughts, depression, anxiety about anything and everything, just living. And I didn't know why per se until I really was able to look at my life and compare myself to people that aren't me, and how I talked, how they talked, what they did, what they thought about, what they cared about. And I got to a point when I was 19 or so where my mind was very expanded because I got out of the house that I was living at, and I entered a whole new world of things that mattered and cared a lot more about myself and my environment, the things that I experienced. And I think not a lot of people encourage themselves to do that, or the people that they care about to do that. So people keep each other below, and it's easier to be kept below and just, life is good, enjoy it while you're here, versus, hey, I know you can do better in this area. Let's expand on that. But it takes someone who has been there before, who can think about where that person is, what they're doing, how they think about things in life, and try to help them. But like I said, it's easier to just ignore that and just do what you want to do. It's also easier to reject someone trying to help you in that way and just be like, screw what they think, I'm gonna do me.
So give me an example.
Of what specifically? Of saying, screw you, I'm gonna do what I want to do?
Right, so you said people are more likely not to help?
People are more likely not to help, and when people do try to help, they're more likely to say, you know what, I'm gonna do it my way anyway.
Is this all races or just black people?
All races, but I think different cultures have different societal and emotional views on things, where like, if you try to tell your mom anything, like you for example, maybe if you try to tell your mom anything, you'd be like, this is crazy, like, I'm making a detrimental mistake. Versus someone who's of a different color, maybe a lighter complexion, or maybe even darker complexion, would more so challenge that. I think it's really all about what's around you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would semi-agree, right? So I know that you were overweight, you know, and in the last 2 years you have tremendously, you know, changed your body, changed your health, right? You look great, 170 pounds, right? Abs poking out and everything, so I think that's awesome. Now I know we talked about a couple times, like, is it easy for everyone to accomplish what you accomplished? I think no. I would consider it easy. I know our conversation, you said, well, it should be easy for everyone to do this. And I challenged you on the background of everyone, right? Because I don't think we could just say things are easy for someone without knowing the history. So knowing how they grew up, right? What they're used to, right? You were raised differently, right? And I would say, and not the greatest way, right? Because I grew up in the same house you grew up in, right? Just different points in our life. So I'm proud of you, right? I'm happy for you. But I also think that if you want to, help inspire, you got to know that person. And I don't think that this is just an easy task for people to do what you did in the amount of time that you did it.
Why would you say that? I would say I'm more disadvantaged than the average person. If I've lived that way most of my life, if I wasn't shown anything else, I would say it was harder for me to do it versus someone else. It was probably easier for someone else with more resources, with more people caring about them, who, like, if they were that much overweight, I think they would have more support than the support that I did. When I was talking about losing weight, when I was talking about, I want to get abs, this and that, a lot of times I was met with like, you're being superficial, like it doesn't matter that much, like this and that, versus the average family, the average home, the average support system probably would really encourage it and help. Not to say that I didn't have help, because I definitely did, because without you encouraging me, without you bringing me to Lifetime and changing my perspective, you know how I said people are the limit that they set because of the pool that they're in. Just most people don't, I would say it was easier for most people. Most people could probably get it done in a short amount of time. They just don't decide to do it. And we were talking earlier, and I said I didn't really decide to. I just was doing things that made me feel good, that made me feel better. And I eventually got to a much better outcome, and I just ran with it. I never made an exact choice. I'm going to look like this. I'm going to weigh this weight. I just knew that I had a problem. I didn't know how to fix it, but I knew I had YouTube sometimes, where I could use my mom's phone or laptop and look up like meal plans, because I didn't know how to cook, because nobody had showed me like, hey, this is how you cook correctly. Hey, this is how you take care of yourself. I knew how to cook like hot dogs and ramen noodles and pizza and stuff, but actually cooking for a reason and purpose myself, for my own macros, it was a completely new thing to me. I had to understand the value in it and say it myself and do the research and trust what I was doing, because if I just did what I was doing and it's like, I don't see results, or I don't really feel better, which some may feel, because I felt that way at a point, and they give up on it, you take all that power that you could have learned, all this stuff about yourself and about your body, and you throw it away because of what you're expecting to get out of it. I think people who are looking to change their perspective when it comes to their body and their mind and how they think about themselves, how they look in the mirror, how other people see them, they need to be okay with failing when it comes to what they want to be able to succeed, because you're not doing it for results. I wasn't doing it for results. I was doing it to live a better life and take better care of myself, because I knew that it took me not taking care of myself to get to that point. We watched Jarhead, and it said, Private Pile, were you born this way, or you had to work at it? Like, work at being overweight, fat, lazy, this and that. And
Terrible movie. Terrible movie.
I think it was a great movie, but I think you have to have a perspective of, I want to change to be able to change. Nobody should have needed to make Pyle try as hard as he did. He should have wanted to be a Marine that much that he preemptively put in that work to get to that place. That he did know things before he got there.
I think he had a disability. I think he had a disability. I disagree with how they treated him in that movie. Also, when you're, talking about, you think you had a fair chance, right? Like everyone else. I agree our lives were harder growing up, but, I got you.
Thanks.
I agree our lives were harder growing up, but I think you had more time than the average 20-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old. You weren't working. If you were working on your own base. Sorry. You weren't working, and if you weren't working, right, you may have been Ubering or something like that.
There's no way it should be the time, just saying.
there isn't a way because this has some special things. So just use this.
All right.
But yeah, you work hours that whenever you wanted to work, you could work. I think most kids have a job, or they're in college, or they're doing something. You had an apartment that you weren't paying; it was free to stay in, right? So you didn't have to really worry about money. You had a car, so I think you had more time than the average person. And I always tell you that now, like you have more time than me, right? Because you're like, AJ, why aren't you going this hard? I'm like, hey, I work, right? And I work more than 8 hours, I would say, in a day. And I also have a child. So again, I'm happy for you. And I know we talked about you possibly wanting to be a trainer down the line. My encourage to you is always know your audience. They're not going to do it like you did it. So you got to adjust to how to train somebody where they feel comfortable with you training them, right? With you giving them that excellent experience of working out. I think a lot of times you're hard-headed, right? And that you kind of want things to happen your way.
Do you know how many times I've heard people say that?
I'm sure you heard it a lot. And you
Oh, it's
still
your way or the highway. No. I believe that I do want things to work my way, but I think that's for a good reason. And I don't know if I would agree with you, and we could do the numbers later, or the people who watch us could think about it themselves, but I think just in my little circle of life, the things that I think about, most people who are under 25, they are being taken care of in part by someone else. Like, a lot of people have different kinds of resources, right? So if you don't have a really nice home, you have people that'll help you do this. You have access to this. You have access to that. So I think that people, especially in my age or with my situation, definitely could have easily done what I did. And it's not like it's that insane. I just think that lots of people put their energy and attention and just disperse it many different ways, right? So most people aren't going to stay focused on one specific goal like that or one specific outcome like that. They're going to get stuck in other different aspects of life and find comfort and ease in that versus really staying focused on a goal at hand.
Right, the goal at hand, right? But I mean, we talked about a lot of goals, right? I think you said that you believe that, everyone has the same 24 hours, right? And that everyone could pretty much do what anyone else can do, right? And one thing we talked about was presidents, right? And you're saying, hey, anyone could be president, right?
If they meet those qualifications, yeah.
You have to be like 35.
Born in the U.S.
Born in the U.S., right? The qualifications are extreme. But my challenge to you was, how come we haven't seen a black person until Barack Obama? And we have yet to see another one. So if everyone had the same 24 hours, if everyone was equal, I disagree. I think, again, you have to look at the background, the culture, right? Know the history. So even when with working out, I think that applies as well. Like, people were raised different, right? You don't know their story. We always talk about, like, hey, who's in the gym, right? And versus us to the gym, how do we feel like we look, right? How are we doing when we're working out, right? And again, I love going to the gym and having these conversations, but I don't think you look at history. And just while we were watching this movie, right, I told you, like, hey, you answer the questions in the moment, but you don't think about what actually happened. You're just answering the question. So, for example, did it rain yesterday, right? You'll say yes. right? Now, me, I don't know if I'm going to believe that, yes, right? If it was just misting out like we had earlier, right?
Mhm.
Is that really raining?
Technically, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because it's not like the mist was just sitting there; it was falling down. So you think that I think it's black and white? Or, yeah, life is black or white.
I do. I think you think life is black and white.
I think that's fair.
Do you like this?
I think that it changes my body and my face. So
It changes your body and your face?
yeah,
Okay.
I think it's changing my voice as well. So
In a bad way?
no, I mean I don't think anything's bad. It's just discovery, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, go ahead. I do think we see things in black and white. We have hour-long conversations on a regular basis. And a lot of times we disagree because you're talking about the situation and I'm talking about the history of where that situation came from. So, for example, when we were watching the movie, right, you're like, you said something, and you're like, see, they for the guy, Mile, whatever his name is, right?
Pile?
What is his name?
Pile?
Pile. Yeah.
Pile?
You're like, hey, see this? Like, he's not, following directions good. He's not doing this. He's making the team work harder, right? I was like, well, what happened in his background? He's a heavier guy. He seems disabled to me, right? I don't know how this movie is supposed to be a good movie when someone disabled is in the military being treated unfairly, right? So I think you see things in black and white. So I think, going to Marines is going to make you more black and white, And
Is that a good thing, you think?
I don't think everything's black and white. I think there's gray areas to almost everything. On paper, you can answer a question, right? But you can't. That answer on paper is different if you look and see it.
What do you mean? I think that things in life are performance based. So if I were to say, like, hey, what kind of job do I want? Do I want to make, let's say I want to make $17 an hour because I like the number 17.
Uh-huh.
And if I'm not making 17 an hour, on paper, I should just not accept any job that's not going to pay me that money. Now I could think, oh man, well, what if this job was going to be really fun? Oh, these people that I could possibly work with, could do this, I could do that. But on paper, I'm setting a standard. I'm telling myself I don't want this outcome. And it really comes down to what I value more, what I say that I want, or the possibility of a better outcome.
Right. I think we talked about that scenario too, right? So like, if you want an outcome for your example, I think that what if you didn't make $17 an hour, let's say you made 14 or 15, but it's easier to get to 17 an hour than where you go that is actually 17 an hour, but it's hard to move to a place where you're getting an increase to your pay. Which one is better? To me, I'm going to take the lower pay for the better opportunity in the long run. You, I believe, is going to take the 17 because you have it stuck in your mind and get hard-headed, right? Like that.
Leave it up to me.
This is what I'm doing, right? So that's the biggest difference between us. But do you see how my thinking, I think, could be more logical?
Logic to me is 1 + 1 is 2. Like, AJ or Lucius wants a job that's going to pay him this. He shouldn't accept anything but that. Because there's so many opportunities to come across that settling for something that you know is not going to be what you want is not a good outcome. Like, just like with a partner, right? Do I want a partner that doesn't work out? No. No. Like, that would be a terrible idea. So,
but then you're eliminating a large amount of partners, right? When I think a partner, when you find them, may not do all the stuff you do, but I think that in time, right, it could be the best partner ever. right? They're gonna start working out, right? We've seen relationships like this where like, hey, someone found a partner. Look at yourself, for example, right? You're saying, hey, I wouldn't have dated myself when I was 300 pounds, but now that I'm this fit, I think women should want to date me. I care about what's on the inside. You care about more what's on the outside.
I think that the inside matters to me more. I wouldn't necessarily say that the outside matters to me more. If someone's going to treat you amazingly, if a job is going to be super nice to you, so amazing, they're going to value your every second of being, but they're going to pay you $10 an hour, I think it needs to be like, hey, like we need a time frame of this 17 or you don't really care about me, you know? Like if you really cared about me, you would want to do what I want you to do.
But what if you're not a good worker? So what if you say, hey, I want 17 an hour, I need a time frame, but you're a bad worker? Like you don't do the job well. Are you still expecting that 17 an hour? Because I think, again, you need to prove your work ethic, really in anything, right? You need to prove, hey, I'm worth this, right? Prove, I can do this. I can do more, right? Think of, contracts from football or basketball, right? The person that's doing the most is going to get paid the most money, right? So again, with the 17 an hour, I think you have to really evaluate yourself, the jobs that you've done, and if you're worth it.
And this conversation is obviously not really just about jobs, it's about life in general. It's like,
it is about life in general.
What are people really worth? I think that you can set a standard to yourself, like, just like that, like, I'm worth this, walk away.
Yeah.
But that's not really what they're worth, because you could always just go around the corner and hope to find something better. I think that it's about settling down with something that you're comfortable with and happy with, but you're always looking to improve that thing. Like,
but you said to improve, you would like to physically improve. I think, what if they don't want to physically improve? Right? Like,
I think that's bad. To me, that's bad. Because if you don't want to physically improve, I think that you don't want good things for yourself. Like,
right, but your physically improved and my physically improved, I think, are different. You're saying like, hey, they should have abs, they should, have, thigh muscles, arm muscles. Like you're saying, hey, you need to be fit, instead of, hey, you look comfortable. You're not fat, you're not skinny, but like you're comfortable. So when you say like, hey, I want them to be fit, that was very jealous. When you say I want them to be fit, we gotta acknowledge we're watching football, right? But when you say you want them to be fit, I don't think your fit fits the standards of what a partner is when it comes to, hey, I want you to be fit.
I think that we're looking at it from a weird point of view, because if you look at the statistics, most people are considered overweight or obese. And even just a person who's not overweight or obese, I wouldn't say just the average person within the regular weight range, I wouldn't say they're fit either. I think to be fit, like the higher levels of fitness I achieve, the more fitness means to me. So for someone to be fit, I think they need to run and be able to like walk, run, jog, jump. They need to be able to like just do basic movements with ease and feel no pain anywhere. Like, and it's not like a big task to be fit. To be fit just means that you're taking care of your body that keeps you alive here. And it's obviously known that if you're not fit, if you're not healthy, you increase your likelihood of bad things to happen to your body. And that's not good for any partner that you're with or just life in general, because it's going to mean that you can't do what you want to do. Like I always say to people, it's like, oh, you don't care about, your fitness? Okay, so what if you had a stroke right now? You'd be like fucked up. What if you had something really bad happen to your body right now? Thankfully, I've had nothing terrible happen to my body, too crazy, but I think that most people would obviously easily say, hey, well, if I just now had a heart attack because I didn't run for 20 years of my life, I would need to focus on just being able to live. and then nothing else matters. So I think that people only care about things when it's too late, and it's unfortunate because I sound like my father here, but people only care about things until it's too late. Like something bad has to happen for them to get serious about things in life. And that's everybody, right? Like you need to go through bad things to be able to understand what good really is, right? Like how important is it to be fit? Oh, I don't know until I'm 300 pounds and then I'm 100 and something pounds. Okay. Well, how important is it to have good people in your life? Well, I don't know until you got nobody talking to you consistently and caring about you. Well, how good is it to have money? Oh, I don't know until you have no money. Like people don't know what they're missing until they don't have it anymore. And then I think people in general, me included, we don't understand what things are worth until we're lacking that thing. It's scarce. It's hard to find. We don't know if it can ever be found again, right? Like just a good, happy, healthy relationship. We were talking about this earlier, right? Like people being together and being happy together is something that not a lot of people experience in life, especially as they get older. The divorce rate, I think now most people get divorced who do get married. The average black marriage, Kevin Samuel said this, I don't know if it's true today, but the average black marriage lasts 5 years.
Is Kevin Samuels black?
Yes.
Okay.
The average black marriage lasts 5 years, and that's not enough time to really get to know anybody, especially as you get older, right? Like maybe if you're 18, okay, 5 years is a long time. That's a big part of your life, and you haven't really done, I mean, some 18-year-olds are crazy, right? But me at 18, I didn't do a lot of things. So if I was with someone for 5 years, from 18 to 22, 23, that would be major, major, major.
I have a question. So you were saying like, hey, you want your partner to be fit. I think we could say statistically that most of your relatives and your parents are not fit.
Okay.
So are you saying that you would love us more if we were fitter? Because that's what you're saying in a partner.
Love. What does that mean to you in this context?
I mean, it almost means similar to your partner, right? Like, I'm assuming you would love your partner, right? So I guess we could say you would be happy. Let's use happy. Are you saying you would be happier spending time with us if we were fit?
Oh yeah. If all my siblings cared just about being fit, oh my gosh, yeah, let's work out all the time, right? Or just anybody. If I was that 300-pound version of myself and I needed someone to tell me, hey man, like get yourself together, improve your life, improve your body this way, that way, the other way, because look at what I'm doing. Look at how fit I am. Look at how happy and healthy I am. It would have been inspiring to me, and I would have gotten better faster. It would have been easier for me to do so. But because I cared about something that not all the people that I was around cared about, it was hard for me to make that adjustment because I was alone, essentially, in that caring about it. Like, I guess, I don't know why, but I cared about my own fitness, as I should, a lot more than anybody else cared about their own fitness just in my own life. Mm-hmm. Like, I cared more about my body than anybody else I'd ever seen until I started going to the gym. Be like, oh, you do that? Well, let me start to do that. Like, let me try to do that. Like, let me get better at this.
Is it charging? Do you know?
It should be.
Okay, did it vibrate?
I don't know if it will, but I believe it is.
Okay.
I'm just going to make the assumption. But
you
know what I'm saying?
And so I find that, interesting that you think you would have a better relationship with your family if they were in better shape.
Why do you think that's interesting?
Because I feel like in order to have a good relationship with family, it doesn't matter what shape they're in. I think that it matters how they treat you, how you treat them.
Do you think
I could get more into the camera if you want.
Yeah, that'd be better. I'm gonna back up.
Yeah. So I think it matters more. You
You got it.
okay? I think it matters more how they treat you than whether they're in shape or not. I think that's what hinders you with relationships with people that could be close to you, is that you want them to be a certain way physically. And because they're not, whenever you see them, you want to talk about how they could be that way, but they don't want to have those conversations with you, right?
But I think, like, why don't they want to have these conversations if it's their own life, their own body, their own happiness, their own... Because me, at 300 pounds, I can tell you, you knew me at 300 pounds. Do you think I'm happier at 180, 179 pounds? Or was I happier at 300 pounds?
Happier. I think you're a menace to society. You're probably proud.
Okay.
Do you
Menace.
think I'm gonna have this bump in the back of my head like you do because I cut my hair?
No, I think it's gonna grow. No, like, fuck. I mean, I don't really know. I think that through time, it's going to heal, and you're just going to grow hair regularly.
Right.
This is from repeated abuse of the back of my head. So it's going to take time and me cutting the rest of the hair for it to get it to match up as it once was. Just like I did before, because I used to have this bump too, and then I let my hair grow out. I mean, it took time to let it grow out and stuff.
But this one grow behind you too.
But I'm gonna just...
Like, I got big things. I got a football, right? Like,
Yeah, like...
you have your food tub underneath there, right? Like, there's lots of things around you.
There we go.
But
There
again,
we go.
What I'm saying though is like, we've asked this. You've asked this to me. We've asked this to our other brother, right?
Was I happier being...
No. Spending time with them because they're fit. So to answer your question,
Was I happier
was you happier?
at 300 pounds?
I would say no. You were not happier at 300 pounds.
Obviously. I mean, I think it's easy to think that, like, just from
But
my perspective, like...
I also think that when you're 300 pounds from birth, no, right? Not since birth, but you were heavy to me, and I know I've explained this to you, since you were a little kid all the way up until you were 19. And on 20, you started taking this journey, maybe even a little at 19. You started taking this journey. And at that point in your life, you didn't have to live in a household you lived in, which you didn't like, right? You didn't like how you were treated, you didn't like a lot of things. Once you were 18, you got out of that environment, then you started to change. And you're saying, hey, everyone I talk to, I want to change now. Again, that goes back to the history, right? Like thinking back of who they are, what they were doing, because you just came out of being 18, a fresh young man in the world. So I think you were happier, but I think you were 18 and able to do things on your own without having to do it with your parents. So I think that's the biggest difference. And then also with your brothers, again, we tell you sometimes like, hey, like we don't want to talk about working out. We want to spend time with each other, right? We don't always go, and you are hell bent on, no, let's do this. No, let's do that, right? Even myself, right? I'd be like, no, I absolutely don't want to, right? And somehow we still end up doing it, right? Just because I'm open to it. But again, I think you get better relations with people by understanding the history, right? When you talk about your happiness and when you started to gain your happiness. Everyone's not at that stage in life that you were at. Everyone didn't have that background like you were at. And again, talking to family members about being healthier every time you see them, right? I think makes certain family members not want to talk to you as much.
Do you think, my first question is, do you think that I care that those people don't want to talk to me if they're not what I'm about?
I do not think you care, but I think it's unhealthy to not care about your family if they care about you.
If they really cared about me and all I want to talk about was working out, they would talk to me about working out. Just like George, right? Our father. If he cared about us, he would try to talk to us, no matter what it was about. But anytime he talks to us, what's he talking to you about?
Well, I mean, he's openly says he don't care about me, right?
In recent year, he said, "Hey, AJ, I don't care about you. I don't give a
100%.
Really?
100%. But what he talks to me about is about God, is about the past, right? Is about his children's and his wives that he had, right? It's all about past stuff, nothing really future. And yes, he's recently said like, "Hey, AJ, I don't care about you."
When did he do that?
When he was trying to talk to me about you being like the worst kid ever, right? And I challenged him, like, "Hey, Dad, like, you said the same thing about me, right?" And he's like, "Why is it all about you? I don't care about you." Right? Like, that's what he said.
He said, so like he was talking about me, and then you asked him a question. He said, "Why is it always about you?" It's like, what?
Yeah. Because he didn't like the fact that I was, trying to show him like, "Hey, you keep saying this about my brother, your son, right? When you said this about me 10 years ago, right?" And he started to get upset, which we know our father gets upset, right? And like, why is this always about you? Why do you gotta make this about you? And it's like, I don't care about you, right? Like, he's done this multiple times in my life.
I think he's just a bad example of what a father should be or is. But because we're alive because of him, that's unfortunately the title he will always have. Is a father. Like, I haven't called him dad for a very long time. I don't do it because he's not a dad to me. A dad does more than just let you out and talk bad about you, right? Just give you bad memories. To me, a dad is supposed to be something that's positive in your life, and I can't say that he's continually been that, or even I can think of like, at this moment, oh, it was so great. I was just so thankful that he was my father. It's like, he's only been, like, he's public enemy. Like, all of my girlfriends have known, like, he's just a bad person. Like, you don't want, like, he's just bad. But then the unfortunate thing about people is they take what they know you face, and in the heat of the moment, they may use it against you, or they may become hateful at you and try to hurt you in some kind of way.
Right. So, and it's interesting you say that, right, out of all, because you're the only child that lived with him from birth until 18. So none of his other kids spent a full 18 years with him. There was years I never talked to my father, right? He's been absent for most of his kids' life except for yours. You have more pictures than anyone else of your siblings with you and my dad having good times from you being younger. I'm not going to say like age 10 and up 18, right? I haven't seen that, but from, I don't know what ages you were, but like, I would say at least 7 and younger. He has the most pictures. Just in general, he has more pictures with you than he has with any one of his kids being young. Now that could be because, you were born in the 2000s and I was born in 86, right? Mondo was probably born early 80s, right? But you spent the most time with him, and I know you think that you were treated the worst, right? I think I was treated the worst, right? But I still acknowledge him as dad, and you want to acknowledge him by his first name. When on paper, my name is George too, right? So when on paper, I think you had a better scenario than any one of his other kids.
Scenario, like life scenario. You think that my life was set up to be more successful than all of his other kids because of, like, is that what you're saying, or are you just saying when it comes to him?
When it comes to him and you and him and me and him and his other kids, I think one of his kids he didn't acknowledge or do anything until he was 10, and even when he met him when he was 10, I don't know when he started to actually on a regular basis talk to him.
I heard the story. It was like he was in adulthood, and then like he saw him at this funeral or whatever, and then he was like, "Oh, you're my son, what?"
Right.
But he was like 20 or something.
Okay, yeah, he took his 20s. I don't know, but I knew he had a son out there. My relationship with my father was very physical. Very, very physical. I think he physically harmed me more than any one of his other kids.
Do you think I disagree with that?
No, I think you agree with that. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I don't know how other people's experiences were. I'm not going to think, oh, he's going to beat Keisha. Oh, he's going to beat Armando because that just doesn't make any sense. He's going to beat Marcus. Oh, it just doesn't make any sense. Edward says that he didn't get touched by him really at all. Like, there was one time, I think.
One time, yeah.
Me, I know I got finessed on more than one occasion, and I have many different stories, like, of just bullshit. Like, this shouldn't have happened. Like, there's no reason for this, but I got hurt. But I know after a certain age, I want to say, like 12, I just didn't take it anymore.
Right. But he legally wasn't able to physically harm you, right? Like, through the legal system, they said he could no longer touch you.
Yes, but also in the legal system, he wasn't supposed to show up at 2:41. He did. I think that, like I said...
We're talking marriage versus son, right? So, like, he wasn't able to physically hurt you as much as he was able to physically hurt me, right? And you said at a certain age of 12, like, to me, it got worse the older I got, right? And I think he really meant, to harm me in every way he could. Mentally, physically, emotionally, I think he was trying to harm me.
So you think from birth he was just out for your blood, or it was problems with him? Because, we watched this movie, Antoine Fisher. And yes, the setup was there for this guy to be making bad decisions, to have him be challenged in life and not really understand how to maneuver the things to make it better for himself or anybody else. But I think it's a choice to decide to fuck up.
Mm-hmm. How long do you want this video to be?
I don't care.
Because if you upload it, can you really upload it?
We should stop it before an hour.
Okay.
I was thinking about half an hour earlier, like yesterday when I was thinking about it.
But no, we talked for a long time.
Yeah, we already.
This is actually a good conversation to us because we're not like super passionate yet. Most of the time we have conversations that are pretty passionate. But yeah, I think from birth, my dad wasn't in my life, we could say, right? Like, he came around every now and then, but he was in the military, right? So he couldn't see us as much. I understand that. I believe at the age of 3, we moved back to Illinois. My mom and him weren't constantly together. They were more on and off. I believe he was trying to work things out more with my mom than be a father to his kids.
Which is an L situation to be in, L situation to put yourself in, because you should care more about a whole other person than someone that's not trying to work with you. Let's just say Sheila wasn't trying to work with him, right? Like, at that point, he should decide to be a father and to control what he could control, manage his own life and try to be good to you and all the other children that he had, instead of just chasing something that obviously was not going the way that, going the way that he wanted it to. But I think that even though you can make the argument, hey, I was disadvantaged, hey, you were disadvantaged, that doesn't mean that we had his outcomes.
Right, so we do have to mention that we're talking about him, right? So our father was an abused child who went into the system probably at the age of 10 or younger and grew up in a boys' home away from his family, didn't see his family, and then when he was 18, he couldn't live in a boys' home anymore, so he went to the military. He went to the Navy, and he served time in the Navy, but he was kicked out because he physically attacked somebody, right? So my dad has been physical pretty much his whole life. So yes, I think, he did do a lot of damage to his kids, but I also believe that he wasn't set up for success. And I do believe that he took his anger out on me more than he did any of his other kids, because I was in his prime, so like from the age of, let's say, 30, because I think they had me at like 24. So let's say at the age of 30 to 45, my dad was I'm not gonna say great shape, but he was in shape enough to physically hurt me, right, and not get winded, right. He wouldn't get winded. He would think of things to hurt me, right.
He would put you up against a wall, just hold you there.
Yeah, by my neck, right.
For minutes on end.
For minutes on end, right, while everyone looked at me in the room, right, but did not do anything.
Who? Your mother?
No, I mean, at this point, we're talking golden. So your mom, Eddie, the next door neighbor, right? Because they were pretty close with us. My friend, like they've all seen this all at one time. Him grabbing me by my neck, throwing me on different walls, picking me up, choking me, right? Like, you know, I don't think he did that to any of his other kids. As far as the grabbing on the neck, picking them up, right? Like, but again, he grew up very harshly. I understand that, but I do think at some point he should have realized how much damaging he's doing to his kids, especially me. I'm his namesake, and I think maybe that has something to do with it as well. But from what I've known, my father has always been out to hurt me. Even him saying a compliment, right? He said, "Man, I think you'll do a great job in sales because you're a great bullshitter." Right? That was his compliments to me, right? Even his compliments were not good for me. Like, so when he thought he was doing something great, I'm still thinking like, hey, this is terrible. So, I know we both dislike our father, but I do think you spent the most time with him. I mean, you have, right? As far as all his kids, you spent the most time with them. Or you've been in the same area, space as him.
It's an undeniable fact.
Right. And I don't believe he treated you worse than other people. Than other siblings. I would say maybe he treated you second worst, right? Because Mondo, he didn't spend time with him, you said, until he was in his 20s, right? Me and my twin sister, she's a girl, so he tried to beat her once, but I jumped in and tried to stop it, and he did stop. Our other brother is autistic, so he never touched a hand on him. So it was me in his prime, and it was you living with him. And I do think it's because you're a boy too. I don't think he would have been as hard if he had another girl.
So how important do you think children and parents, like how important is that relationship for people? Because everybody has a parent. Like if you're born, just like on that Full Metal Jacket,
right?
Like you are an anomaly if you have no parents. It's like a miracle. Like everybody has parents. It just depends on who actually helps raise you and where'd you come from. I think people are their own parents because when you grow up and you live and you maneuver life, you have to raise yourself to act however you want yourself to act for your own life. Just because your mom says, oh, you need to do this. Oh, you need to go to college. Oh, you need to like girls who do this. Oh, you need to do that. That doesn't mean that you need to do that. It just means that that's what they're telling you and putting forth for you, right? Like I never would have done football without my parents.
Dad.
You would have never, what? I can't tell you what you wouldn't.
But you wouldn't have played football if it wasn't for your father. I wouldn't say parents. I mean, I would strictly say father with that one.
If my mother died, I would not have played football because she made the money to put me in football.
I think you were. So my dad loves football. If there's anything that I know that he loves, is football. I think you were going to play football however it was played out. Now, you didn't do it for a very long time, but at some point, like if I was just the outside looking in, I would say you would have played football. I played football, you played football. Eddie, who's not even related to him, but he's his stepfather, played football. So all the men that my dad had time to spend with them as young kids, all played football. All the boys. 3 of us. So I do think you're going to play football no matter how it's planned out. Now, we do have interesting conversations about him, right? Just about his health a lot, right? How he's doing, who he is in my life, who he is in your life, who he's in with our siblings' life.
Leah.
Right. Who he is with his granddaughter's life, right?
Carla.
Yeah. Who he is to Carla's life. Yeah.
I have a story with exes, right? Yeah, I said exes know him to be a bad person. Like,
yeah. So, I know you say that, like, on paper, or maybe not on paper, however you phrase it, that, like, he's already passed away.
To me, he's been dead.
Where I don't like that you say that, right? I don't like that you say that.
Explain what you mean by that.
I think, how dare you say, how dare you say he's already dead to me, right? Like, now, to me, he's still alive, right? And you always tell me this, like, hey, he could be a better person. He could be a better person. He could be a better person, right? Now,
he's not.
And I told you, like, hey, at this point in my life, like, if he's a better person, right, good for him. That doesn't mean I still want to have a relationship with him, right? Like, I've tried to have a relationship with him for 35 years of my life, right? And
you shouldn't have to do that, though.
I shouldn't.
As he made you, you shouldn't have to do something to get him to care about you.
I shouldn't, but mentally, it messed me up because I wanted to show him I'm not who you said I was, right? You said I was going to be this person. I'm not that person, right? You said I would make this type of money. Oh, I'm making double that money, right? Like, I wanted him to see me for something good because I'm so used to him saying something bad. Now, although he didn't have to validate me, right? I wanted to possibly hear my dad say nice things about me to my face.
At this age?
Even at this age, I would be nice. So, like, I think the best thing my dad could do if he wanted to make me happy is...
If he wanted. That's so sad to say.
Right. He doesn't want to, right? he'll go to the grave with it. But if he wanted to make me happy, right, he would acknowledge the pain that he did to me. But he doesn't want to acknowledge the pain that he did to me or you or anyone else, right? He blames it on everyone else. And he doesn't look at himself. So right now our father's in a bad situation, living in a halfway house, right? Not able to go back to his house because of his actions, yeah. So he's in a bad situation, probably worse than we've ever known him to be in.
Mm-hmm. On paper.
On paper, yeah.
Our other brother says he's happy. It's like, how? Like, what are you talking about? What does that even mean?
Right. But I would help him out if he acknowledged, like, what he's done, right?
I say he's already dead because he doesn't want help. Anything that he wants for himself is not going to be good for, I would say, anybody else.
Correct.
And I don't think he's going to change. So I think he's already reached a certain level in life. He's not going to reach any other level that anybody would say, oh, this is good for him. He's just so stuck in his own way that he's happy with whatever he's doing. He's going to continue doing whatever he wants to do, even though it damages him. On paper, and everybody else would say, hey, this is damaging for you. So he's already dead to me. Because I don't ever see him reaching out like, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's talk about this. Hey, I'm sorry for this. It's going to be, at most, Bible scripture. Oh, you did this, your mom, A, B, C, D, E, X, Y, Z. No matter how much time passes, right? Like, I think in 20 years, if he's alive, he's still going to be on the same stuff.
Right, but, I mean, we do have to acknowledge that he has said for many years that you or your mom are trying to kill him, right? Like, he's been very vocal about that.
But what is that actually, my bad.
No, go ahead.
Just because someone says something doesn't mean that it's realistic, true, factual. They could just be lying to themselves because, like I said, it's easier to lie to yourself instead of upgrade and hold yourself to a higher standard. Like, even though he says that we're trying to kill him, on paper you can't really say that because someone trying to kill somebody is a matter of physical action. Like, I'm going to poison you, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to stab you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But in reality, the most physical damage that's been done to him has been his own doing.
I mean, if you're saying as an adult, we can't say that as him being a kid, right? But I think you both disliked my father, right? Which good reasons for, right? I'm not gonna say it's bad.
Me and my mother?
Yeah. But I know me and you had lots of conversation about the trial and what was going on, right? He did something to your mother that got him kicked out of the house, but didn't do anything to her body, right? Like, didn't do anything that involved her. He just decided to pour water on the bed. And
she had water on her chest. So
she was laying down? I didn't know she was laying down.
I wasn't there. I was only in court. I just know that they said, they argued, if she had water on her chest when they got there, that obviously means she didn't just lay down in the water. He had to, so if he poured it on the bed, because he claimed that he poured it on the bed over her. It's like, one, you're already doing something that's stupid and illogical, and if you're taking the chance to pour water on someone, and that happens, apparently that's still enough to get you in a situation that's not good.
You're right, but he has a history of calling the police, abuse, right, and doing things that a lot of people didn't agree with, right? So I think it's all the factors that took place for him being kicked out of his own home, right? Where I felt sympathy for him, right? And you felt none at all, right? You felt none at all. You're like, hey, this is good, right? Like,
W's.
Right, you're saying this is a win. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, hey, like, he got that house because he was in the military, served, right? Helped put down the deposit. Yes, he lost his job, and Lucy paid for, the bills pretty much moving forward from, I would say, 2005 until current, right? Because she's still in the house. But when I say I'm happy that my father can't go back to that house, and he's in a halfway house, where I think Lucy easily has enough money to move out, right? If he's treating her that bad and doing all this stuff, right? Let him be in his house. You can easily move. He can't because he's disabled. So we can't forget that he's long-term disability.
On paper.
On paper.
Not in reality, though. On paper. Because if he was disabled in reality, a disabled person in reality, physically, is not going to take time and effort and energy to harass someone, abuse someone, take time and energy to pour water on a bed and then indirectly that person.
I think on paper he's disabled because he has to keep...
paper.
He's disabled.
So you think he is disabled, physically?
I think physically he has things that disable him.
Do you think that there's someone just as fit as him or less fit that's working a job, making it by?
I do, but we also have to consider the fact that I think my dad is crazy.
I think
his mind isn't all the way there.
I think he likes people to feel sorry for him, even though historically he would say like, "Oh, you want someone to feel sorry for you?" Like, he says those things, but then you told me like he lives his life now for people to feel sorry for him.
I agree. Now in his life, I think he lives with people feeling sorry for him because, again, the hospital called me to pick him up, but just last week.
Last week?
No, I'm saying like
again.
No, but like like a month ago, I would say. Mm-hmm. Hospital calls me to pick him up. Mm-hmm. When the week before, he's saying all these bad things about me, right?
To your face.
Over the phone. I wasn't seeing him, right? And calling other people that he's never had a good interaction with to tell them bad things about me. So why would I go help him? He thinks because I'm a good person, and he's, at the hospital, which he goes multiple times a year, right? I would say sometimes for things that don't even matter.
Sometimes. I'd say majority of the time.
Right, but I think he wanted me to feel sorry for him, and I think that I'm the worst person he should go to statistically based off of everything he's done to me and everything he's continued to do to me, right? But he knows that I have a good heart, right? And yes, it felt, it didn't feel the best, right? But I have to, I have to stand up for myself. So I didn't agree with him being kicked out that house though. Where you were happy, your mom was happy, right? It's a W. You started changing the house, right? Good for you, right? The house is looking a lot better.
Someone actually approached you and said what? And many people approached me and said stuff of that nature. Multiple people.
Yeah, somebody approached me saying, hey, they seen a big difference with the house. They said that big angry man isn't there no more.
Oh yeah.
They said, they had a lot to say about my father, but our father. But I've always admitted my father has not been a good person to me.
Should we even talk about the dog that he went?
I mean, we have to, but we would go over an hour. I think we're already over an hour.
We are over an hour. I mean, if I was listening to this, I'd be like, no, don't stop now. And I think that the people through time will.
I mean, you may have to break the videos up, but if you want to talk about the dog, so I mean, during court,
he cried. Oh, well, he didn't actually cry.
Right. But during court, during this whole process of him being kicked out of his house, he wasn't able to go to the house until court was finalized. So he was staying in a hotel. He has a dog, a very, very big dog, unhealthy dog, I would say. And you took that dog for a walk.
I did.
And he was alive when you left. But when you came back home, the dog was dead.
Yep.
My dad was devastated.
That's not realistic. I mean, I think we should say the whole story, but I think in retrospect, and even in the moment, that's not true. Like, you can't say that something that you don't care about, you care so much about.
Right.
The fact that he was unhealthy, he died because of that, says that he doesn't care about him. You could look at that house and say, okay, this person's not caring about this house. He was there all the time. You could look at the dog and say, okay, this person doesn't care about this dog. You could look at every aspect of his life and say, okay, he doesn't care about none of this.
That's almost how I think.
And then even more information backed it up that, hey, he doesn't care about this. And I'm not going to say for certain, but I also think someone else also said that he had assaulted the dog too. Like, if multiple people see this, if you could just look at how things were before he was gone versus after he was gone, you could see a big difference for the positive. And
right. And somebody told you that.
I think the dog was not living a good life. Period. But so yeah, the dog and I went for a walk. We walked a span of less than 3 miles, and the dog died.
And a lot of people blame you for killing the dog. Everyone who I've ever talked to about this dog dying, because I said earlier, you hate my dad, right? So he says you and Lucy tried to kill him. I don't know if that sentence was true, but you guys weren't trying to help him.
I talked to him many times. Hey, man, you gotta take care of your health. You should go to the gym, right? I think you can't say realistically that I hated him. I hated it, like, just like he would say to me, like, oh, Lucius, I don't hate you. I love you. I just hate what you do. Like, I hate your actions. Like, I could say the same for him. Like, no, not for you, but for him.
Right.
I wouldn't say I love him because he's done nothing but hate me and cause strife in my life, but I would love the idea to have a good relationship with my father. I would love the idea for him to be a W and make good things in my life and for his life, and give me something to look forward to for my own life and build upon, because I have the expectation, because it's set. It's all about expectations, but when I've had nothing but damage to me, bad interactions, and bad perceptions about life and things from him, I don't hate who he is. I hate what he is versus who he could have been and what he's decided for himself, myself, my brother, and everybody else just that I'm related to. Because it's not a positive on paper, even though it could have been. Like, in that movie, Antoine had a good family to go home to at the end, which is great for that movie, right? But I was saying the whole time, like, hey, that's never gonna happen. Like, we're never gonna have great people, warming, welcoming, this and that, because there's this really bad past history of trauma, damage, abuse, bad things, bad things, bad things.
That's a different situation though. Like those people have never seen him before. He was put into the system at like the age of 4. But you know, when you said like he used to say, Lucius, you know, I don't hate you. He told me many times in my eyes, I hate you, son.
Like, I mean, he told me that recently, but when I was growing up, that's what he would say.
But for you to say like, hey, like you know, wanted all that for our father, you said he's dead to you, right? I think he's been dead to you for a very long time, and I don't think, like you said, you talk to him and stuff like that. I think you talk to people when they're not ready to talk, right?
What do you mean?
Like you talk to people when they're not in the mindset of I want to have a conversation with you about this, right? So I think your talking is more damaging than good, right? Even in the videos that you showed me of him, you know, acting out, the things that you say did, it's not something that looks like love or care at all, right? I think out of all of his kids, you show more action as far as hurting our father than anyone else. But you know, I think when the dog died, it was easy to say, like, hey, he's going through this big court about having his house back, right? And if he cared about anything, he cared about his dog. Now, I could see him physically abusing the dog because he abused us, right? Like,
so somebody approached you when I was in the house, and they said, what, at the house?
Oh, somebody approached me and said, this house looks amazing. It looks a lot better. They've never seen it look this good. They said that the big older gentleman that lived there,
mean old man,
was mean. Yep, was mean, and he used to like hit his dog, and you know they have a lot to say. We talked probably for like 20 minutes or longer to this person, right? Gave lots of compliments about the now, and gave a lot of negatives about the past. But again, when it comes to the dog, like, I think it was wrong of you to have the dog die like that on your watch. There's videos of this dog breathing, and he's struggling breathing, right? Like, I think he had to have gotten to a point before where he was breathing like that, and he should have thought to myself, I should bring this dog home on a very hot day, take him for a walk. He's overweight, no water. We don't know the last time the dog had water.
3 miles. Okay, audience, does 3 miles sound like a huge walk for
I
a
thought
dog?
you told me 6 miles.
No.
3 hours in, 3 hours.
No, it was
Okay.
less than 3 miles.
Okay.
A dog that's 12 years old. Okay, so I theorize that this dog was so overweight, so unhealthy, so unfit. Also, the owner of this dog has had many different dogs before, and they were all treated essentially the same. They all had worms consistently.
Yeah.
They all had fleas consistently. For
Yeah.
years, they weren't taken care of.
I agree.
And obviously, worms, if left untreated, is going to go into a heart problem. It's going to cause many other different things. So this dog was overweight. He was not good with people. He was very kept in the house and inside. Or they said he was outside for literally all day in the cold and like in the rain and this and that. So I think that the dog was just at a point where it was so hurt by life and our father that it wasn't ready just to go on a 3 mile walk, which if you, I think, ask any serious person that walks a dog, I've seen a dog run uphill with a guy biking, right? So the dog is on the thing, and this is not like the only, like, I'm not the only person that's seen this, right? Dogs are meant to be fit. Dogs are not meant to die just by walking 3 miles. So I don't think it was unreasonable for me to think that, oh, you know, this dog is going to die for a 3 mile walk.
Right.
So, but the point was that Scrapper, the 12-year-old dog that has had these same problems, has had worms as a puppy, had worms many different times, had fleas many different times. He can go on a 3 mile walk and be fine. I took that same path, and he made it.
And that dog's probably 3 feet smaller than him, and probably 100 pounds less than him. But I mean, my theory is okay. My dad gets kicked out of his house. I would say within a month of him being kicked out of his house, his dog died. It looks suspicious, right? And the person the dog died with at the time was you, who said my father's already dead to me, right? And you who say, hey, it's a W for him not to be in the house, right? And for you, and he couldn't hit you, and you said, and you knew that, so you wouldn't stay there. You'd walk away. You do all types of stuff, right? If I read that on paper, I would say you killed the dog, right? Like,
so the question is, I mean, he couldn't hit me at that age because it's assault, right? Like,
well,
but,
you were already 18.
No, I'm saying when the dog died. I thought you were talking about like in that span of time before when I was getting the evidence. It's hilarious because he'd be like, "Stop recording," right? And it's like, no, I mean, not that I knew at the time, right?
Yeah.
But like, this is what's going to help my mother be able to be pushed into the life that she should have decided for herself. And he didn't want that. And he bullied her into saying that she didn't want that. But she praises it now, right? She's flexing now. She's happy that she's talked about how good it is for her life now. And I don't think that people in a below position understand what's good for them, right? Like if I'm Lucy, and I'm letting these things happen, if I'm okay with this life, I'm not going to think logically about anything when it comes to the things that I'm doing in that moment. I'm not thinking like, how can I get out? I'm thinking, I want George to stop harassing me because that's what she subjected herself to.
Yeah.
Instead of who's really trying to help me here, or how am I going to be better by this moment. And I think that he used a lack of resources, a lack of confidence, a lack of understanding to his disadvantage realistically, but to his advantage when it came to getting what he wanted, sitting at the house for 27 years doing nothing. But it really just hurt him. So I think that someone should have checked him like, hey, George, you don't want to be in this situation. If he had people by his side, which was probably still his own fault to an extent, right? Like, I'm not going to say everything is his fault in life, but to an extent, he made people not care about him enough to say, like, hey, you need to get your own money. Hey, you need to work still. Like, you can do this. Like, hey, you need to get fit still. Like, you can't say, like, so let's say you're George. You can't tell me that I'm trying to kill you if you're the one making these interactions, if you're the one that's having these bad mentalities that let yourself get so stressed out over really nothing to the point that you could have any physical thing wrong with you, right? Like, any physical thing wrong with him is his own doing. Do you think that's true or no?
Yes. Now, let's not forget that he was on disability because he hurt his back on a job that he worked for, probably the longest job he had. And he went out because he hurt himself. He's never been the same since.
He told me that he was shoveling snow.
Shoveling snow, yep.
At the house?
No, it was at work. It wasn't at the house. But it was definitely snow. Now, there's a couple of points, right? Like, I don't think it's a W that he got kicked out of his house, right? Also, I mean...
For him or for life in general?
I think for life, overall, right? Like...
The world is a better place with George living at the address.
The world is a better place?
241, yeah. Because you said life. So
right.
Life to me is everybody involved. Lucy, me, Edward, everybody involved. George. I think it's better for George to have to look at reality and say, hey, I can't abuse people.
Mm-hmm. But when he went to court, right, this is the first time something like this has gone down. They immediately kick him out of his house for 2 years or 4? 2 years.
It wasn't immediate. There was a little mini, thing, and then, there was an immediate emergency for, 15 days, and then court happened. So he had 15 days to look at the situation and prepare, and he came to court talking crazy. I was trying to light a fire under her. His words. yes, I may have no. He said, yes, I verbally abused you. Yes, I did this abuse. It's like, someone who doesn't think that they did that is not going to say that.
Right, and then my challenge to you was in that, right? Like, they should have did some type of psych test on my father if he was talking like that, because I don't think he was in his right mind to be at court with nobody defending him when your mother had a lawyer. He's saying all this nonsense. Like, I think a judge should have realized something's wrong with him, and maybe gone from there. But for them not acknowledging like his his psychotic episodes, right? It did damage to him. I also think he's a black man in Wheaton, where I think we're less than 5% of Wheaton population, right? And most of us, if we are in Wheaton, they're in jail, right? Most of the black people in Wheaton, Illinois, if you look at the population, there's more percentage in jail than there is just out. I don't think they gave him a fair shot. I think for them taking his house from him for a couple of years, I don't think that was right. I think Lucy could have easily moved, right? You and her could have moved. But I think they should have, like you said, light a fire under them. I think they should have lit a fire under him. So I'm like, hey, you've already been out of your house 15 days. If you do something, you'll be out of your house for good. Instead of just saying, hey, you gotta get out of this house. And with our father not knowing that he's gonna get kicked out of his house, he didn't have a plan B.
I knew it. And I told you that, right? I'm like, hey.
You do it. Yeah, me and you argue about this all the time. Because I'm like,
there's no way.
Right. But he didn't have a plan B. So now when I said he's in a bad situation because of his actions, yes. But I don't agree with how everything went down. I know he's a bad person. I know he did you wrong. I know he did Lucy wrong, right? I know he did the animals wrong.
He did you wrong. So he did everybody wrong that lived with him. But you're saying that he should be allowed to stay at the place that he did everybody else wrong in? To me, that doesn't make any sense, because this is someone that doesn't care about. This is someone that doesn't care enough about themselves to improve their lives. But not only that, they're going to harass the people and damage the people on purpose continually that are just around them. Not only just that, helping that person on paper live. And it was his own fault for not having his own plan B, because Lucy could have died, right? Like, nothing is promised. And I think it's enabling, like, that pool thing that I was saying about, like, you let the people around you influence you to be who you are. I think that he wouldn't have turned out the way that he did unless my mother hadn't, allowed him to be that way for so long. But just on a few basic facts, like, hey, I know I abused this person. That immediately says, okay, so you need to go. Like, you know that you did this person wrong on continuous basis. Why would you stay in a situation where you know you can do someone wrong? Okay, besides that, let's go with the pity deal. Okay, they're trying to kill me. All right, well, you can go somewhere. You can do something about it. You don't have to let these people harass you if he claims that's what happened.
But you know that they would not have gotten that house if it wasn't for him, right?
I know that he initiated the ownership of the house, but I do know that it was not upkept by him in any way, shape, or form. He basically got to a place. He got to a place, got comfortable, and then just started let me hurt this person.
But I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying 241. It would have never been bought. We would have never lived in there if it wasn't for him. I think he picked out the house himself, right? I think he put down money, probably more money than your mom, right, to start living in there. Mm-hmm. And then I think Lucy did take over, right, papers and stuff like that. But we can't acknowledge that this house wouldn't, and that's another thing, that house wouldn't even exist for us if we never lived there. If we were still back at Golden 121 in Glendale Heights, it wouldn't have been a problem because they were renting. I think that the situation, you know, we talked about this multiple times, right, about abuse. As far as his kids, right, we couldn't do too much, right? But as far as Lucy, I think Lucy had the power to do stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel bad that she didn't do it, right? Because she did go through, you know, probably hell with our father, right? But I can sit here and honestly tell you that my mother never put up with that. I'm not gonna say never, but I didn't see her put up with that. Anytime my father acted ignorant, stupid, right? Anytime he tried to be aggressive, my mother had her own house. He was not on any bills or nothing, right? She would handle the situation. I've never seen him abuse my mom, like just talk to her in a way that he talked to your mom, right? So yes, my dad's an evil person. Yes, he's treated a lot of people in that house that live there bad. Me, you, Edward, Lucy, right?
But he should live there. What you saying?
We wouldn't have ever had the house without him. But I think Lucy could have stood up for herself many times, many ways. She was married with him for over 20 years. I could say probably 15 of those years were bad, right?
In every way.
15 years of their marriage was probably bad because your mom started taking over the bills and she was working 2-3 jobs. He was just at home.
16-hour days, most days.
16-hour days, yeah.
My whole life, most days.
Right.
Which is terrible. Like, you know, I blame
Well,
her.
Why not move out?
Like, I blame her, but I don't blame every aspect because, like I said, it's once you get in a situation, it's easy just all you gotta do is maintain. All you gotta do is maintain, especially when nobody's like, hey, you should care more about yourself than this.
Yeah.
Obviously, she could have done something different. She didn't have the power to because she let it get beaten out of her, or maybe she didn't have the energy to start, right? Like
beaten? My dad's never
beaten, as in like not physically necessarily.
Right. Don't say he physically hurt her.
Beaten not as like when you talk to someone a certain way and they don't have the power within themselves to immediately stop it. It's not like all of a sudden something's gonna change and then all right, this day it's enough. Like I'm tired of it. No, and not. I mean, it's not really an average thing. My mom's situation. My grandfather was 76. My mother was born, and she didn't have a father figure in her life continually, really forever. So she didn't really know what to do in a lot of situations. So I don't blame her just for a lot of stuff. I just blame.
Then why you blame him for beating us?
I just blame continually what happens, right? So like.
But how do you blame him then? If you don't blame your mother, but you blame him for what he did to you, he had it worse than your mom.
Let me say that worse is very subjective, right? Like, I don't know which one I'd rather have. No parents that were good for me and running away all the time, or having one parent that showed you a life in a world that you can't really replicate. It's like if Lucy or someone showed me silly stuff and I'm just like, oh, okay. And I go try to live that life and it's not realistic for me. That's a bad situation.
So you really think
also,
Lucy...
if I didn't really have any parents and I was just running away constantly, then it's my own interpretation of whatever is going on, right? Like George didn't have it awful, right? Like someone else had worse parents than him. Someone else...
I think you should ask your mom.
Someone else on top of having worse parents than him also didn't have the same resources he did. They didn't have a home to go to, right? Like they...
We're talking about your mom and my father. We're not talking about you and us right now.
I'm talking about in life.
But you started talking about your mom and our father.
So I'm just saying that there's two comparisons, right? My mom was not given a stellar situation to deal with. She lost her father very young, less than 10 years old.
Yeah.
So she wasn't shown how to be when it came to relationships, I would say, in specific instances, right? She didn't have a very good baseline to go off of because she did not live the life that my grandmother lived. So I can only hold her for so much. And like I said, it's not like I hold George for everything that he did. I just hold him for a lot of stuff because after a certain age, you gotta know better, right? Like I tell classically, I said at 10 years old, hey mom, you should like not do this. Like you should get out of here. Like we should get a different situation. Like we shouldn't have this happen. You know,
Right.
you should care more about yourself. You should care about me, and you shouldn't let this stuff happen. And she didn't have the tools in her tool belt at that time to make that happen because of whatever reason, including like I said, my grandmother, her father, versus George. It's like I could say he has had a child since age 16. So he's been 16, double 32, and then he was still doing the same things, acting up the same way. And one way is just like not helping. The other way is like completely damaging, like against the law. And that's what really fucked him over. If he just never, broke the law, and if he was just bad as a father, you couldn't really say too much, right? Because there's bad fathers all around. But because he admitted to abuse, especially with the person that he was to himself and everybody else around, calling the police on me over 100 times throughout my lifetime. Just being irresponsible, not really caring about anything but what he wanted to care about. I could easily blame him versus blaming myself or blaming my mother, because one's a conscious everyday decision. My mom just had to go to work and ignore what she was dealing with.
He really agreed to abuse?
That's interesting. I would think my dad would never say he abused, because he says he never abused us, right? So it's interesting that he said that.
Next time we talk to him, I think that you should ask, like, hey, do you think that you abused me? Okay, did you abuse Lucy? And just be curious as to what he says, because...
I mean, I've asked him multiple times. He says no, he didn't abuse me.
Okay, so I think if you started off with like, hey, you're out of this house now, right? Like, why'd that happen? Did you abuse Lucy? And if he says no, he's just,
I think he's gonna say no.
he's lying somewhere, right?
Right, because you were in court, I wasn't, but I think he'd say no. How long are you trying to keep this video?
It depends. What do you have to say? Are you done speaking?
I mean, as far as like him and your mom, I mean, I don't see how you could say that he didn't have it harder growing up, right? I mean, I knew Lucy, right? I've seen her with her family, right? I've seen her with her mom, her sisters, her brother, right? I haven't seen something like that with our father. So although Lucy may have had an